Hello and welcome back to Devil's Gambit. We will be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is after, you know, this. After Hector found Cadgan and he realized that he was a big, imposing meat man. Well, not meat man, like a woodsman, I think. Um, he is definitely not the little boy that he remembers, his little friend, who apparently used to be shorter than him. Now he is significantly taller than him and bigger. Like he could probably pick him up and throw him if he wanted to. Um, Aside from that, we also met some of the other characters. We met Arwell, the keeper of the bar slash inn. We met Manuel, who is the Duke. I thought they were like a marquis or marquis or whatever that word is. But it turns out that they're a duke who oversees this area, who is also trying to mount an expedition to the Eye Valley, which apparently is cursed. There's a demon or something. I don't know. There's something. Could be the guy behind them. I don't know. Um, and apparently he is a very respected physician who has written a lot of medical related pieces of literature. And given his personality, I wouldn't put it past him to have done some unethical things while studying medicine, because he kind of has that look about him. Aside from that, he does have some interesting physical features, some obvious deformities, which may be why he decided to go into medicine. But yeah, we'll be seeing a little bit more about him right now. Well, not right now, but like in this video, I think. I'm pretty sure. I think. I don't remember. I'm just trying to get through this. Anyways, but yeah, so without further ado, let us continue, and you guys can see what I'm talking about. His hands on mine as we lay down, his grip tightens. He raises his arms above his head and brings them down. He splits the log clean in half, though I only see the moment before halves fall off the stump. I'm sitting behind Cadgan watching him, taking all of him in, from hands to shoulders, every crease of his gray back, his tail poking out of the hole under his belt. The wolf looks back at me and talks, but I take a while to remember what words are and how to speak. I'm sorry, what did you say? Got your head in the clouds? I was just thinking about work. What a coincidence, I said. How did the meeting with the Duke go? It was going well until the end. Somehow I set him off. I heeded your warnings, of course. Or rather, he became angry before I could reply. You still had your head and everything else in place, so it couldn't have been that bad. Maybe I stared at his mask, but I didn't mean to. It just baffled me. What did? Cadgan turns to face me, his naked chest and shoulders in full display. They expand and contract with every breath, luring my eyes in further. My hands move themselves to my lap. Not only did he mention the demons of Ranani, he said that they still exist. I should have mentioned that, but I figured that you were used to everybody here going demons this or demons that. From the townsfolk, but not from the Duke. What do you think? Could they still be around? The past is the past. Nothing you say can change that, even if you're a noble. His words sting me, and the cold from yesterday rears its head. Come on, Hector. He's talking about a different matter altogether. Don't let your memories distract you from what's in front of you. Besides, you are too old to be sharing a bed and holding hands, no? Head in the clouds again? No, anyway. Why is he saying that then? Surely he didn't convert to demon worship. I figure it's because one of the earlier incidents of the Eye Valley expedition. Back then, we had more lion workers in town because they hadn't been scared away yet. While Cadgan is telling the tale of what happened back then, my eyes drift off to the forest. I can almost see them, dozens of lions crossing into the valley, close followed by beasts pulling wagons. As they near the cursed chasm, they come across the ruins. Whether they are of woven origin or belonging to a different, long-gone civilization, they don't know. All paint and most engravings have faded or crumbled, leaving no clues at a glance. Crossing the forest had proved challenging despite all their preparations. It rejects all who attempt to reach what lies beyond it, be it through fallen trees, rivers overflowing, or wild animals. But now they're almost there. All they need is a ruin that has a ceiling, and for that ceiling to not look like it'll collapse any second. They don't trust this place. They've heard about the dangers and the past expeditions led by Duke Leopoldino and many others who once had laid claim to the land. So they sent 2 to check if the walls are holding up, or if the terrace still supports their weight. Are there any predators or pests nesting there? They stop when they find a fitting ruin to make into an outpost. Tomorrow they'll venture into the twisting, breathing depths of the valley in search of a spot to build a settlement, the first of many, according to the Duke. That night, a scout goes up to the terrace to escape the dense air in the ruins. One beast below whimpers. It must have seen a wild animal, he thinks. He looks down, searching for it, and then he spots a shadow dashing towards the woods, along with 2 bloody rubies that stare back at him. Cadgan brings his axe down again, then adds the wood to a pile beside him. In the following days, the men fell ill one by one, until there weren't enough people to continue the expedition. After their return, that same scout kept saying that the shadow was a demon. The Duke dismissed this as a delirium at first, but came around to believing it later. God, that reminded me of some curse that I've read about. What happened then? Sweatbugs. They are a parasitic insect that infests fruits to get eaten and lay eggs inside a host. They are very active this time of the year. The lions didn't notice them in the ruins, and they got in their food. A demon being behind it would be less nightmarish. I'm never going there. What happened to the lions? They got better, but the more incidents that took place, the stronger the demon rumor grew, scaring more lions away, and the ones that returned home warned others against participating in the expedition, even mentioning the demons. And that's how we arrived here. Since we can't get more lions, the Duke is plucking wolves from the town instead, and hiring doctors to patch them up when they get hurt. I must say, this makes me feel guilty that I'm taking the Duke's money. Don't be. It's nobody's fault but the Duke's. Cadgan lets go of his axe and throws his arms back in a long stretch. I grip my knees, nails digging into the fabric. Heading to the river? You coming? And then through the fabric and fur into my skin. On the way to the river, I'm barely holding a chuckle. I'm walking a few steps behind Cadgan, hoping he doesn't notice, though it'd be no wonder if he did. The moment that he had mentioned the river, my mind conjured a most scandalous image of me and the wolf bathing together, me minding my own business when he suddenly tackles me from behind, wrapping his arms around me. Then we play wrestle before I let him work my back and shoulders with those large, rugged hands. His fingers scrub away the filth, undoing the knots under my skin. How silly I had felt when, in reality, he came back out of his shack with his cape on, carrying a bucket full of clothes in one hand and a board in the other. Such an idiot, jumping to conclusions. This can't be just nostalgia or me being impressed at how much my friend has grown. But what is it then? It makes me so afraid to think about it that my mind goes numb, and with good reason. Hector, you couldn't handle it. You already have enough on your plate. Please be happy just watching Cadgan. You don't need his hands on yours or your back. Being there with him is reason enough to be happy. Don't squander it. Besides, I might be jumping to conclusions again. Cadgan always brings out my rash side. Here we are. We climb down to the riverbank and Cadgan places his things next to a boulder. Then he undoes the straps on his chest. What are you doing? I don't want these clothes to get wet. The wolf tosses his spalders and the cape aside, and his pants are next. I gulp as he reveals the well-worn loincloth under. Then he empties the bucket on the bank before sitting down and getting to work. By the way, I got sidetracked with the Duke and whatnot. I wanted to ask you how your first day at work went. I hope nobody gave you trouble. Some of the more thick-headed folk reject the doctor's help because the Duke hired them. I can't blame them for their anger, but they are directing it at the wrong people. No, they were most kind. Good to know. It's silent except for the noise of Cadgan rinsing his clothes before throwing them onto the rock to scrub and beat them with a board. When he's finished with a piece, he throws it back into the bucket and moves on to the next. God, his pants were barely holding him back before. Now the loincloth. No, stop. Think about something else, Hector. Talk to him. I've been meaning to ask. Where did you get these? The armor? One morning a knight showed up at home with that and a bag of coins, dropped them off and told me to keep doing a good job. I learned Manuel appointed me as a peacekeeper the same day. Imagine my surprise. Can I see it? The wolf nods and I kneel next to the armor. It's so heavy that I can't imagine wearing it for a few minutes, let alone most of the day as Cadgan does. Even my untrained eyes can tell it's high-quality work. And not only the spalders, but the cape too. Only knights wear things like this. My nose catches a spicy yet pleasant aroma towards the middle of the cape. It's hard to sense it with the smell of earth and Cadgan mixed in, so I bring it closer to sniff it. It's familiar, like I've sensed traces of this before. Pollen from a flower that I never paid any mind to, perhaps. Cadgan, what does it smell? The wolf's ears twitch as he comes to my side. I didn't think this through. He's too close. He takes a whiff and after a moment chuckles. Well, aren't you being cheeky? What is he talking about? But before I can ask, he reaches out to his pants and cautiously smells the backside. My heart stops. I guess I'll clean these too. He clumps the cape and pants before tossing them into the pile of dirty laundry. Then he gets up with a grunt, undoes the loincloth and sends it with the rest of the clothes. I can see his privates dangling out of the corner of my eye. Since we are at it, do you want me to wash anything of yours, Hector? Don't worry, I can dry in no time. No, thank you. Alright. As though he had thrown away his carefulness alongside his clothes, Cadgan walks into the river to continue working, not minding in the least that he's getting wet. If he'll be doing laundry naked, then he might as well get a bit cleaner in the process, he must be thinking. As for me, I'm trying not to be too obvious in my attempt to hide the tent in my pants. His muscles being relaxed compared to when he was cutting wood doesn't make them any less mesmerizing. My God, is he as soft as he looks? I wonder how it would feel to lie on him. Work aside, are you enjoying being back in town? Oh, yes, although I haven't had a chance to relax and talk to the people just yet. Besides you, I mean. Who did you have in mind? I've been thinking of Finbar, but it turns out that I got assigned to him, so I saw him this morning. I was surprised. He's always been on the shorter side for a wolf, but he still used to be so stocky. Age has been rough on him. It happens. I guess so. At least his children are helping him with the forge. Though it seems teaching them to use it has been a big undertaking too. Big indeed. Yes. Cadgan is saying something, probably about Finbar, but what's in front of me occupies my entire world. In my years as a doctor, I have seen my fair share of naked men, but I've never witnessed anything like this. Could I even handle it? I don't know, I've never... Hector? Hello? Ah, sorry. I was just thinking. Did you get enough sleep last night? It's just, I need to take a leak, but I didn't want to interrupt you. I'll be right back. Sure thing. I hide behind a tree much farther than needed. I'm still cupping my crotch, as though afraid somebody will witness my shame. How could I forget? Wolves have anal glands. You were enjoying his ass smell, Hector. But how was I supposed to know? It smelled too good. Oh God, it smelled too good. The twitching under my tent only adds to my turmoil. And when he took his loincloth off right next to me, what if he had noticed then? Would he have shown me the arrogant smile again? Put his hand on my head, caress my cheek end. A whimper escapes me as my hand rubs my erection, fingers tempted to slip under my pants. But you can't, Hector. If you do anything here, Cadgan is bound to notice. You shouldn't underestimate a wolf's senses of smell either. Calm down. Think of something clinical. The knife cuts through the herbs. I prick my finger on the scale's hook. Cotton absorbs the blood. The elixir boils. Knife, hook, blood, elixir. Thankfully, Cadgan is too busy to notice how long it took me to return. He talks about my patience. He keeps my eyes on the river all the while, until the wolf finishes cleaning. Everything but what he was wearing gets thrown into the bucket. Are you going back like this, or? Of course not. Cadgan looks for a spot with some exposed dirt. Then he buries a claw into the earth and moves his arm, drawing a circle and a shape inside of it. A sigil? I didn't know you were a mage too. I worked at the shrine for a while, learned some tricks. After tracing a circle around the sigil, Cadgan tosses his wet clothes on top of it and touches the ground. The area around his palm glows as he releases magic, as does the sigil. Perhaps he put too much magic into it, seeing as the sigil glows intensifies before waning for an instant, but he stabilizes it, and soon the humidity evaporates from his clothes. Then he steps on the sigil to dry himself off enough to put them back on. Good enough. I'll hang the rest to dry. It's a relief that I don't have to keep my gaze from drifting down to his crotch anymore. Now if only I could look him in the face instead of the chest. Act 1, Chapter 7. The Sad-Eyed Lady. What Dad never warned me about bad influences, probably because he hoped that it would never get to this point, was that they were like toppling a stack of stones. You hit one section and the entire thing crumbled down. One summer night, I had been sleeping on the wolf's bed with a book in my hands when Cadgan shook me awake. When I pried my eyes open and saw darkness beyond the window, I groaned and turned my back to him. Hector, I have an idea. What? The river. Want to go there? All right. He shook my shoulder. I don't mean tomorrow, but now. I know a way out. No one will notice. Those words sobered me up. Cadgan's proposal worried me some, but it was also exciting, like breaking the boundary I began pushing with our nocturnal reading sessions. However, I wonder what his escape plan was. Security around the mansion was at its tightest at night, and although they let the wolf do as he pleased during the day, I doubted that they let a child wander into the forest when it was dark. When he reached the staircase, I made to head downstairs, but Cadgan took my hand and pointed towards the Duke's study. This way. I thought that we were going outside. You'll get it when you see it. Come on. We stepped in front of a large portrait hanging in the hallway leading to the study. A tall lion lady was sitting with her hands on her lap, a green garden barely visible behind her. Her gray and sad gaze was upon us. Who is she? Why do you want to know? Do you fancy lionesses? I punched him in the shoulder, but Cadgan made fun of me for how weak it was. Then he told me to hold still while he climbed on my shoulders. Here. There was a clink and the portrait's frame came loose, or rather the wall behind it did. The wolf hopped off my shoulders, nearly knocking me down, and pulled the wall open. Tell no one, but I found this one night. A secret passage? Where does it lead? The middle of the forest, I guess. Who knows what the Duke was thinking? The wolf stepped into the opening, and when he noticed it I wasn't following, he turned back with a quizzical expression. What's the holdup? Are you sure this is safe? What if there are guards in there? There aren't any. He offered me his hand, blue eyes shining like gems in the dark. They were so deep and pretty. After some hesitation, I took it and followed him into the darkness. The portrait hid a ladder, and at the bottom of which laid a tunnel permeated by a musty smell. I held onto Cadgan's shoulder while we crossed it. At the end was a cellar door exiting into the forest. The night enveloped us with its starry arms and lukewarm wind that rustled the leaves. The wolf reacted to my awe by crossing his arms with that searing smile of his. I'm starting to think you only invited me to the river because you wanted to show off your secret. Yep, it's too cold at night. Can't even take a dip. But I still want you to see the river. It's like a piece of the sky fell. Yeah, but how do we get back? It's so dark. We mark our territory so that we can find the door, duh. Oh, really? It was so simple that it sounded true, but Cadgan sniggered at me. No, dummy. I carved the trees. Indeed, many trees on the way to the river had been chipped, forming a trail. The river, as Cadgan had put it, looked like a piece of the sky fell off, with stars floating on top of the surface as though they were flower petals. The wolf ran towards it and crouched. I expected him to turn around to reveal a star in his hands. Instead, he gathered water to drink it, wiping the river's surface clean. The stars returned shortly after, but the illusion of this being a piece of the sky had been shattered, and the anticipation Cadgan had built up during this little adventure lost in the ripples, though it surprised me how little I cared. I wasn't transfixed by the river, but by the wolf. At times I had thought that I admired him so much that I envied him and wanted to be like him. Such a naive and sweet misunderstanding. It went so much deeper, into places that I didn't know existed, tapping into emotions that I couldn't put into words because I never had to before. Deprived of words, when the wolf turned to me with a half-wet face and chest, I hugged him instead, as though to melt into him, to never be split apart again, and when he patted me on the head in response, I barely held tears back. However, the body's language isn't as precise as that of the word. Although it's honest, the gaps of uncertainty can be as wide as the darkness separating the stars. No matter how strong my longing, I couldn't imagine a word for it other than friendship. The truth eluded me then, so let me remember now how I truly felt by the starry stream. Act 1, Chapter 8. Into the Eye Valley. A raspy voice asks me to wait, followed by a clattering iron and arduous steps. Old man Finbar opens the door, his eyebrows betraying his worry. Hector, what a surprise! I have a late shift at the hospital today, so I figured that I'd stop here earlier. Can I come in? Of course. Excuse me for the mess. Every time I enter the shop while Finbar's family isn't around, the air is humid and the forge is slightly hot. Today I find the embers lit in full blazing glory, as well as a hammer and a pair of thongs laying on the workbench. Seeing my fears realized, I can only sigh. Finbar, stop working or your leg won't heal right. He shrugs. Today I woke up with so much energy, Please, it's not the first time that you did this. You're not good at hiding it, but I knew that you would deny it unless I caught you in the act. You underestimate how much strength this sack of fleas has left. I came out of my mom's womb blacksmithing, son, and that's how I'll die. Don't be so dramatic. You're not dying. But you'll have to do all your blacksmithing from this chair if you keep this up. Now back to bed. As I'm hurrying him along, my eyes stop at the forge for a moment. I'll concede to Finbar that he has lost nothing but youth in these long 9 years, much like the embers which still shine a blinding orange and make the air around them waver. I remember the bells jingling as Dad barges in, like a ritual. Our first stop when arriving in town is Finbar's shop. The blacksmith lays his tools down and pulls Dad into a hug. Then he notices me staring and asks if I'm hungry. I'm sent off to either play with the twins or eat some berries in the kitchen, while the two catch up, bringing up names and places that I don't know or have only heard about. But even though he's an uncle to me, and even though the kiss he planted on my forehead during our reunion put a smile on my face, now I'm his doctor, and I must see that he gets much needed rest. There's no better remedy for stubbornness of the old, bored people than a listening ear, so after he gets in bed, I keep him company until his family gets back. You don't get it. No one else works the forge like I do. Indeed. She needs action. I need action. I'm sure that you can find a less physically taxing activity. Let your son do the blacksmithing. I promise that he'll get as good as you in no time. Fa! Your dad would have understood. He'd be tearing his muscles off by now. Finbar cackles, but then falls silent. It's hard to believe that he's gone. I see that he left you some of my handiwork. He forces a smile and points at my belt, or rather at the buckle. He always wore it when he came to Ranani. Must have made him feel like a part of the town. A fine piece of work, don't you think? Certainly. I didn't know that it was that old or that it originated from here. What? You didn't even recognize the two planets? They are Ranani's staple. Let me show you. Where did I put that sketchbook? No, lay down. It's time for your examination. The moment he tries to get up, I stop him and then put on my glasses. I don't need prismalium to tell his leg hasn't healed, but that's all the more reason to keep him in bed. I remove my glasses and shake my head. How does the Duke expect you to get back to work? Who knows? He'll just call whoever can walk to join the expedition. Well, the silver lining is that since you're not making a full recovery soon, you'll be safe. You're just like your dad sometimes. Finbar's expression turns somber as he stares at somewhere behind me. But then he'll call my son instead, Hector. If only the demons stopped interfering, then maybe the Duke would get whatever it is that he wants and let us be once and for all. But I'm cut short by the jingling of the bell and footsteps approaching from the shop. Finbar's wife comes into the room fuming, and as soon as she sees the old blacksmith, starts hounding him for explanations about why the forge is lit. It's nice that she cares so much about him. As I'm taking my leave, I recall the blacksmith's words towards the end. I don't know if it's because he also believes in the demons or because of the way that he looked over my shoulder, but they make me uneasy. By now, Cadgan joining me after work is part of my routine. Despite his reassurances, paying off Sean's debt had hurt his pocket to the point that he skipped dinner most nights. But with Arwell's Nest being our meeting spot, I have a convenient excuse to treat him. No matter how tasty the dragon's cooking is, it'd be difficult to enjoy it while my friend is going hungry next to me. You're here for the people of Oblum because you need all the money that you can get, but Cadgan is just as important, so I'll feed him too. Thank you. Don't mention it. What have you been up to? The Duke wanted to talk. The next attempt at the expedition starts tomorrow. Is he expecting trouble? He takes a moment to savor his food, then talks in a quiet voice. We all are. The Duke wanted me to swear that I do all in my power to catch that demons of his. Why the long face? Sorry, it's just Finbar mentioned that today too. It's not just him and the Duke. I've overheard the other wolves talking about demons every once in a while. It's getting creepy. Trust me, there's nothing to fear. What will you do then? I'm still looking for signs of demonic activity, although I know I won't find any. Shouldn't he summon the Inquisitors? They would be better equipped to deal with this. He already tried, but as far as they can see, all he's dealing with is a very dangerous valley. What he wants is proof to build his case to the Inquisitors. Anyway, expect the hospital to get busier too, Hector. Deep into the night, when all the oil lamps have been lit and a bitter veil has settled, the men in Arwell's Nest retreat home to rest. A while after he finishes dinner, Cadgan gets up and I follow him to the door. But today I can't part with him, not yet, although I know I am unquenchable, that we could spend years not leaving each other's side and it would still be too little. I want to squeeze every drop of time together that we can get. How about I accompany you home tonight? You sure? It's chilly outside, says the one that's going around with his chest exposed to the elements. Wolves are made for this climate. I know, I'm kidding. About your chest, I mean, not the walking home with you part. Right. Cadgan readjusts his cape to better keep himself warm, eyes on the road. Since I came back, he's been letting my blunders pass. I wish that he'd at least joke at my expense. Pushed along by the breeze, we huddle up and hurry to Cadgan's shack, drawing a short trail of pale breath behind us. There aren't any stars in the sky. It might rain again soon. I didn't remember Renani's nights being this frigid. It was summer the times that we went out. Do you remember when you wanted to show me the river at night, and when we got there the first thing that you did is slurp up the water? Way to spoil the mood. I was thirsty. What else should I have done? I hoped for a smile on his lips, just the slightest one, and in the shadows cast I thought that I saw it, a smirk like when we were boys. But as soon as the light from the oil lamps struck, I saw him frozen, as always, in that impassive scowl. He glances at a street leading to the Baron. Do you think about the past often, Hector? Yes, it's very nostalgic being back. I never stayed long in town, but I missed you. I missed you too. A gust hits us as we arrive at his shack. Cadgan turns to me holding his cape as though it'd fly away otherwise. What is he thinking as I hug myself, shoulders tight as I attempt to conserve heat? He teased me for being so thin-skinned, but invites me inside nonetheless. It's not a big place, so I might have to sleep on the floor. No, he would share the bed with me. Lying together, his arms around my waist, me resting my head on his chest, the idea produces a longing so deep, it's as though there is a pit where my stomach should be. But none of it comes to pass. Cadgan gives me a small smile as he walks up to the door. See you tomorrow. Good night. Good night. We exchange one last look before the wolf goes inside and I turn tail back to Arwell's nest. I've missed Cadgan. Even before I step into Ranani, I'm reminded of every little burn mark he left behind, and I yearn for the fire again. Then what is this shiver starting on my fingers, spreading throughout my entire body? The wolf's breath is more frigid than the night's veil, and his gaze sometimes freezes me in place. The embers have long gone cold, turned to ashes and lost in the wind. Only vestiges remain of the wolf that I knew. It's not strange that he's good in his fellow compatriots, no. Neither is that he grew out of going on adventures, being older and busier. But would the old Cadgan have put up with the Duke's impossible demands, especially when he's been tormenting Renani for an entire year? Why is he so calm? Where did all the impulsiveness and spite go? And then there is that he didn't sneer at me anymore, hasn't rubbed it in my face once about how much bigger and stronger he's gotten. It's not that he changed. Too much is just not there anymore. I'm happy to see him again, but are all those things that I liked gone? Did I notice my feelings far too late? I should have come back earlier, if only the plague hadn't hit, if Dad didn't die, if that damned Leopoldino, may his soul burn in hell, didn't. The wind whistles, driving the trees into a full rut. Suddenly, it's as though every smell in the forest is encroaching on me, root and branch alike reaching out to scrape my nape and dig for the bone underneath. I turn around with a jerk, but there are no shadows, nor red, glowing eyes, just rustling leaves. Are you imagining demons now, Hector? Go to bed and stop thinking about this. Remember, you're a doctor, Eogon's masterpiece. You should be happy that you are so close to fulfilling Dad's dream. Don't waste that by shedding tears over a future that didn't come to be. Sleep, Hector. I'm growing tired of waking up to a ray of murky sunlight hitting me on the face. Would it be better to move the bed or to hang something by the window? Pondering this, I turn my back to the light. The day's already started, but I can't get out of bed, and it's not because I had slept little. My nerves aren't delivering the memo that it's time to get up to my extremities, or maybe they are, just slowly. Either way, I lay there, staring at the wall, not getting up, but also too mindful to fall back to sleep. My mind is still full of last night's thoughts, rummaging through them as though madly looking for something, except it doesn't know what that is. Maybe that's why I'm so sluggish. My brain's too busy doing something useless. I wonder what time it is. What would happen if I didn't show up at the hospital today? Gather your wits, Hector. Don't you remember the conclusion that you reached last night? Here, take a hold of the blanket and toss it back. Let the cold do the rest. I drag my arms, heavy like trunks, until fingertips peer out from under the blanket, and in a single motion, I throw it back. The cold pierces my all-too-thin gown and flesh, bringing my nerves back to life. Clothes. Where are my clothes? As always, Arwell greets me as soon as I climb down the stairs, but there is a hint of worry in his smile today. Good morning, friend. Is something ailing you? Is it that obvious? Trying to avoid his gaze, I look towards the tables and find only two wolves still eating their breakfast. Pretty empty today. Everybody got up early and headed to the Baron to see the explorers off. But me, I'm not leaving until every patron's needs have been taken care of. No, sir. Speaking of which, what's wrong? Can I lend you a hand or an ear? Thank you, but I just want food now. Sure thing. Since we are the only ones in the tavern by the time that I finish breakfast, Arwell figures that it's fine to walk with me to the Baron. Near the stables, wolves and much fewer lions clad in leather armor are fastening loads to the backs of beasts with the help of some farmers. The Duke's guards stand in formation around them, blocking the other townsfolk from getting too close. We stand amongst the worried friends, puzzled children, and frustrated women watching the scene. Arwell? I whisper, as does the dragon. Yes? How do I say this? I thought that it'd be a bigger caravan than this. Didn't the Duke want to build a settlement? Oh, yes. The valley proved to be so problematic that His Grace made a tactical decision to postpone that. These men will survey the deeper parts of the valley and recover any relics that they come across. Most of my patients in the hospital Our scouts that had a run-in with the valley's treacherous terrain or the monsters within. I guess the Duke's still looking for a spot for the settlement, but has no luck. It's insane that this has been happening for a year. The wolves are allowed a moment to say goodbye to their families and friends before the guards announce that they're departing. The forest is tall as they walk into it, no doubt invaded by the same encroaching sensation that I had felt last night. No, it must be so much worse, walking into the devil's den, unsure of how long you'll last before they wake up in a hospital bed, assuming that they get help at all, that Eye Valley doesn't swallow them up. It's a miracle no one's died yet. Good morning, you two. A small scream escapes me. My ears burn as lion and wolf alike shoot me startled glances. Demons, if you still exist, there's no better moment to kidnap me than now. What's wrong? He's been off since he woke up. It's just because I overslept and I'm running late for work. I have to go now. See you later. Uh-huh. See you later. What a stupid lie, Hector. If you are running late for work, how come you can afford to stop to watch the explorers depart? But Cadgan does impress me, and I avoid what would have been our most awkward conversation yet. But I don't have any such excuses during dinner. I had hoped to hold a decent conversation by then, especially because I had no issue focusing while on the clock, but my thoughts get thrown back into disarray the moment that I see the wolf. Cadgan knows something is up. He has to. So, trouble today? What? At the hospital. Oh, he's talking about the expedition. Just the usual. I figured that you had a rough day at work, though you were jumpy this morning too. I just didn't sleep too well. We ate a few spoonfuls of stew until Cadgan rescues us from the silence. Hector, do you remember the leaf burning festival? It sounded familiar, but where did I hear it first? Not during this stay, for sure. I try to organize my thoughts to search further back. I asked Cadgan about it once, but before that the wolf coachman, who still had bone and flesh where now a peg leg is, mentioned it when we visited during late spring. Now comes the hardest part, stringing sentences together. Don't overthink, Hector. Just say something. Anything. Right, I never participated with us staying at the mansion. He already knows that, idiot. It'll be summer soon. You should come. I really should, now that I have the chance. It seems not even the Duke's tyranny can stop the wolves from celebrating their traditions. What does it entail? We go around town, the forest and the fields gathering haze leaves. We hold a carnival before putting them into a heap and burning them. Then we dance and eat. That sounds fun. We do something similar back home, except for the burning part. Is haze leaf native to Ranani? What does it look like? The wolf takes a sip from his beer. They are these plants with purple midribs. Ah, then I've seen some. They smell funny. The words don't come out after that. Every question that I have about the haze leaf sounds stupid. I'm afraid to bore him if I continue talking about Oblong's traditions and I draw a blank when coming up with a new topic. In the end, we eat in silence except for when Cadgan makes small talk here and there. The walk to his home is the same. At least there's no demon's touch on the way back. They were busy, far too busy to stalk a foolish badger peering into the forest. I know because the next day I enter the hospital and I'm received by an unmanned reception and pandemonium resonating from the main ward. As I rush in, I remember the lions and wolves marching into the forest. If memory serves me right, there were 36 men in that caravan. I remember their faces, recognize them by lying on the main ward's beds in different states of hurt. Some are scraped down, with a lost look in their eyes. Around a third of them are here now. Not wasting time, I join the others in treating those still in need of urgent care. I abstain from visiting my usual patients today to help at the hospital. The head doctor orders it, though I would have done so regardless. Cadgan arrives at some point and interviews a few men in condition to talk. It's past noon by the time that I am allowed to leave the hospital to take some fresh air. The wolf comes out not long after. Hector. Cadgan. Any findings? One of them brought back his logbook. I've been reading it. I'm heading to the valley to investigate now. I guess I'll see you later then. Good luck with the demon hunt. Are you done with work for today? Why don't you come too? What? To the valley? Hmm. The expedition is still ongoing and most of the men are out there in the valley. It'd be good for a doctor to be there in case more trouble rears its head. Besides, I'm only going as far as the camp at the border of the valley. What do you say? What would I enter the valley for? To risk getting chewed alive by its well? It's all danger and nothing to gain. Cadgan has a job to do and knows its dangers well, so for him it makes sense. But I am the complete opposite. Surely there's somebody with more experience that can accompany him instead of me. Whether I turn to instinct or reason, the answer is to stay away. That it'd be crazy to go. Later, when we're merrily walking into the forest together, I conclude that the only scientific explanation for my choice is that I've lost my damn marbles. Cadgan talks about his morning on the way to the valley, that an explorer reached the new shrine, the one in the forest asking for help, that a rescue party, apparently prepared beforehand, was sent out. One of the Duke's guards showed up at Cadgan's door, knocking until it woke him up, and relayed this, unfortunately. The rescue party had taken the explorer to guide them to the camp, so the wolf spent most of the morning waiting for their return. Once they came back, Cadgan talked to the explorer and then headed to the hospital, and I know the rest. The terrain becomes rougher the closer we draw to the Eye Valley. Cadgan takes my hand and helps me traverse the worst of it. I'm terrified, yet my heart pumps with excitement. God, this is like the little adventures that we used to have. Now it's not so little anymore. We are adults after all, and it's the first time that I catch a glimpse of Cadgan from 9 years ago. The forest opens up to reveal the ruins that I heard so much about. They are not as imposing as I imagined them to be. Most aren't much bigger than a house back in the village. The ones that have partially collapsed, rubble accumulating on top or inside of them. They are almost entirely composed of stone. Now it's rough and crumbling, but that it's still standing at all is paramount to its perseverance. Cadgan, who do you think lived here? The demons? Tales of demons erecting temples or even entire cities aren't unheard of, but those accounts always involve a pact with the mortal party and things going wrong immediately after. It's believed that the demons built this place for a tribe contracted to them. We don't know for sure. Renani has passed hands between many kingdoms, and since these ruins are easy to reach, they've been looted just as many times. It's regrettable, but there isn't anything left that can tell us the truth. Regrettable indeed. The caravan went this way. Watch your step. Not only is the terrain from here on out more unstable, but there are also pits. I think I'll just stay right behind you. I'd still watch out. They move every once in a while, so I might get surprised by one that wasn't there before. I see. Maybe in a month or two, I'll ask him what that means. I need to finish digesting the horrors that I've already learned about before asking for another serving. I'm practically hugging him from behind as we descend. Past the ruins is a vast chasm, a scar splintering the mountains from which stone and roots sprout, ruins dwarfing those at the valley's threshold, overgrown with plant life of matching size. Pitch-black eyes on the mountain's walls overlook the treetops. Water flows from the neighboring summits, pooling in the valley's depths. The breeze carries the scent of dozens of springs. I breathe in the mixture and it burns my nose so much that I check my nostrils for bleeding. Then I glance at Cadgan, imposing like the mountain range behind him, before proceeding further down. Our surroundings turn into more of a jungle than a forest, with smells so concentrated that I'm concerned about my nose's sensitivity. A trail of footprints belonging both to wolf and beast tell us that we are on the right track. We spot hints of white fabric beyond the dense plant life, and soon find many tents arranged in a semicircle around a campfire that's been out for hours. Two wolves stand on guard, their hands not leaving their blades' sheaths for a second, and we catch sight of a third one walking behind the tents. Off to the side are the cavern's beasts, idly munching on flowers. There are also a constant chirping around us, as though dozens of cicadas were hiding in the grass nearby, though I've never heard of cicadas living in the climate like Renani's. Are you alright, Hector? Yes. I'm overwhelmed is all. I mean, not because I'm scared, though I am, but being here is an assault on the senses. You'll get used to it. We approach the explorers, who greet Cadgan before asking who I am. After a few introductions, the peacekeeper asks questions about their activities today and yesterday. One wolf recounts the events of last night. It was at night, he says, when the choir around the camp reached its peak, and they couldn't hear even their thoughts, right after they returned from the day's expedition. He points towards the fireplace, where I picture him sitting in front of the lit fire. In the dark, the iron pot propping above it holds a bubbling mixture of vegetables and meat. It's nothing fancy, and the smell is picked up from the ointment used to keep the sweat bugs away, making him turn his nose, but it'll be filling enough. There's fluttering behind him, someone exiting a tent. It's one of the new line recruits from the Duke's land. The wolf expects to be hounded about when food will be ready, but the lion just stares off into the night. He mutters something, but the wolf doesn't catch it. What? The lion scans the dark, searching. One of his friends exits his tent and asks if he's feeling well. Realizing something's wrong, the wolf puts the fire iron down and silently gets to his feet. What should he do? Could it be Hazeleaf? If so, it'd be wise to get a tranquilizer while the lion is calm, because chances are that he won't stay that way for long. Or would it be better to restrain him now? His friend might not understand. They are outsiders, ignorant of the extent of the valley's dangers. He could call the other wolves for help if they resist, but if Manol's men see a bunch of wolves ganging up on some lions, they might misunderstand. They think it's mutiny, and then it only spirals from there. The wolf realizes his only option is to get the tranquilizer. However, that moment of hesitation costs him and everyone else dearly. Just as he makes up his mind, the lion that had been staring into the night screams. He turns around and flees into the darkness behind the camp. The friend makes the mistake of going after him first, and the wolf sees this and follows them, yelling to stop. No, perhaps that is the right choice, since he will die if nobody drags him back. If the earth doesn't swallow him, the wildlife will. The most dangerous creatures lurk at night. However, in the dark and fighting to keep the lion down, and while waiting for somebody to bring a sedative, they fail to notice the trap they had fallen into, a hazeleaf patch that goes unnoticed. It's only when they return to camp and all hell breaks loose that their mistake becomes apparent. The sound of Cadgan clearing his throat brings us back to the present. Where do you keep the sedatives? And about the lion they mentioned, who screamed, are his belongings still here? Where is his mask? After the wolves answer his questions, Cadgan tells them to return to their posts. A detail about the wolf's story is unnerving me, so I ask Cadgan about it once we are all alone in a tent. Cadgan? Yes, Hector. He's searching for something amongst a pile of bags and crates behind the bedrolls, occasionally lifting a loose lid to check what's inside. His ear points my way, though, waiting for me to continue. Isn't hazeleaf that plant that you gather for the festival? The town's hazeleaf is harmless, if that's worrying you. But as for the valleys, you saw those massive trees deeper in, right? They look like the ones in the forest, but gigantic. Yes, the valley does that to them. Similarly, the hazeleaf here grows into something bigger and dangerous. Cadgan grabs a case that was hiding between two crates and opens it. A small gasp escapes me at the sight of a series of large syringes holding a pale yellow substance, each held inside a slot by a leather band. 3 slots are vacant. He closes the case and leaves it on a bedroll. The valley's hazeleaf brings out the most primal parts of a man. Thanks to the Duke, the people of Renani are tired and angry. The lions are not only far from home, but surrounded mostly by people cold to them and rumors of demons. Imagine what would happen if they were to lose the capacity to hold back their anger, their fear. Then the hazeleaf made the first lion scared, hence him running away, and made the other 2 that followed him attack their companions? Is that it? Cadgan nods. God, it must have been horrible. Some men in the hospital looked as though a beast did that to them. I assume that they used the tranquilizers on the afflicted? Yes, it's best to put them to sleep until the hazeleaf's effects pass. In any case, according to the logbook, yesterday part of the group had difficulties getting back to the camp from one of the deeper parts of the valley. Since it was getting late, they took a risk and crossed a hazeleaf patch to come back. They were wearing masks, so it should have been fine, but it's possible the lion committed a mistake, or that his mask was defective, so he inhaled some fumes. And the rest played out like we already heard. I bet that the haze leaf made his fear for the demons manifest, and he thought that he was seeing things in the dark. We'll know for sure once he recovers consciousness. I guess so. Shall we inspect his mask? I'm not very savvy with those. We'll take it to Renani for somebody else to do that. Are we done then? Not quite. I'd like to find the haze leaf they said the lion and the other two ran into. The Duke won't be satisfied otherwise, and neither will I. Oh? I'm starting to worry about the townspeople believing in the demon rumor. If hysterics take over the town, that won't end well. We can't leave a smidge of doubt as to what happened. My shoulders rise as I take a deep breath and exhale. Alright, let's get it over with. You could stay here if you're scared. Please, think of your safety for a moment. What if something happens and you're alone out there? I don't know, Hector. Do you think that you could drag me here? Were I unable to move? I could give you medical attention or call for help. I haven't restocked on elixir since I left Arwen's nest, but still. Fair enough. Just stay behind me. As if he needs to say it. Once we leave the camp, I feel like a little kangaroo too scared to abandon his mother's pouch, or Cadgan's back in my case. The wolf readies his axe, on the lookout for danger. Through the ever-growing vegetation, I sense the mountain's eyes staring at us. Beneath the earth, endless, spindly fingers follow our movements, never leaving the sole of our feet. The tree branches creep closer, and I'm about to pull Cadgan's cape and shout to watch out when I notice that, rather than they are rocking back and forth, birds take off in the treetops, the flapping of their wings quickly fading in the distance. I halt as heaven and earth alike suddenly tremble. I clutch the wolf's cape, but soon it becomes apparent that, though big enough to be confused for a tightened step, the source of the tremors is too far away to be of a concern. At least Cadgan thinks so, considering he resumes his march. The tremors return intermittently, but we ignore them. That is until Cadgan suddenly stops and I bump into him. What happened? The path ahead looks rather disturbed. Stay back, Hector. He throws his cape over his shoulder like a makeshift scarf, and after scanning the terrain pushes a patch of tall grass aside with his blade. The green strands give place to pulsating purple vines spread across the ground, leaves with razor-sharp edges growing out of them. I lurch back, thinking I see them slither, but that's not it. They are still, yet they aren't. One time I was reading under a tree when it became cloudy, fearing getting caught in the rain and Dad scolding me for ruining his book. I figured that it was time to head home. However, I noticed while closing the book that the pages became translucent under the sunlight, so I stayed out a bit longer, holding out pages to the sky and watching the letters fade in and out as the clouds pass by. This in front of me now is just like that. But how? Am I hallucinating? Cadgan, do you see that? What is that? The wolf hops back and fixes his cape. That's our culprit. Eye Valley haze leaves. Let's get out of here. By the time we are back to the camp, fatigue weighs down my legs and lungs. As a silver lining, Cadgan lets me hold onto his arm the rest of the way to the Renani. I just wish that I wasn't out of breath and in pain. Perhaps if he carried me instead. No, Hector. Bury the thought. Upon returning to the town, one of Manuel's guards intercepts us near the hospital. Cadgan hands him the mask and informs him of our findings. He makes it brief since he's more concerned about getting me to Arwel's nest. We stop in front of the tavern. Cadgan is reluctant to let me go, trying to hold my hand as I walk towards the door. While I let his touch linger for a bit, I break contact with a chuckle. Come on, I'm not so tired that I can't walk. I should have figured that it'd be too much to walk to the camp and then back. Don't worry, I'm fine. Everything below my waist, as well as part of my torso, is burning, but I still force a smile. Is it weird that... Never mind. No, go ahead. Is it weird that I had fun? It was scary, but I don't know why. I also enjoyed it. I feel I shouldn't, considering the town situation. Cadgan shrugs. You've always had a taste for adventure. Don't think too hard about it. He pats me on the shoulder. Get some rest, Hector. You will need it. All right. See you later. A sigh escapes me as the wolf shows me his back and walks away. Despite my exhaustion of how much I want to get in bed and snore until morning, letting go of him isn't any easier. But well, after drinking some water and eating a loaf of bread, I head straight to my room and do just that. I consider dropping onto the bed as I am, but my clothes feel hot and itchy. I need something fresh. However, once I change and get in bed, the dreams come easily. The expedition continues across the next few days, but it's a short-lived attempt. The Eye Valley chews the remaining men and spits them out in no time. Manuel isn't happy with Cadgan's report, insisting the accidents are a work of demons. However, without evidence to back his claims, those are little more than ramblings of a desperate man. The busy days that follow keep me from thinking much about Cadgan. By the time work slows down and I return to my normal schedule, my thoughts are more in order. As for what I experienced in the Eye Valley, the mountain's eyes, the earth's fingers, the rumbling, and the ever-changing vine. Most would forget all about it, bury it somewhere else, hoping that it never resurfaces. However, when I recall the moment Cadgan asked me to come with him, his hand as we crossed the forest, my fingers gripping his cape, my arm around his on the way back, I can't help but hold the ember close to my chest. Act 1, Chapter 9. Cadgan. Nuts slipped from my arms and rolled down the riverbank. Dust and pebbles flew back as I ran to Cadgan's side. Each time the wolf had pulled at his collar, I had thought nothing of it. Even today, when he had been doing it with such frequency, seeing him kneeling gripping his neck while he gasped for air as though his life depended on it was like being slapped in the face. How oblivious could I be? Hadn't I learned from Dad to spot signs, symptoms? But there was no time to regret my foolishness. I had to focus, figure out a way to help him. Was it because of the cyclical lethargy? We've been checking him every day. It's very unlikely for that or some other illness to be the cause. Dad would have noticed. An allergy? He ate nothing unusual, nor do I see anything around that could have caused a reaction. Could I even make it to the mansion? There was no time to brew anything, and you weren't sure the elixirs you had would help. I didn't even know what was wrong with him. When you remembered Dad, you had to call Dad. Cadgan stopped me before I could run off. Although in tears and heaving, he still had enough strength to grab me by the arm and pull me back so hard that it seemed like he was trying to make me fall into the river. I got spun around and fell on my face. What are you doing? Just don't go. Don't be a kid. You need medical attention. No, I'm fine. I didn't understand, but seeing that stubbornness, I was inclined to believe him. His grip, both on me and his throat, relaxes a little. Where are nuts? Stop joking around. Cadgan stared longingly at the nuts, as though not being able to reach them was hurting him more than having trouble breathing. With a sigh, I went to get them for him. Some had rolled off and fell into the river. Nothing that I could do about that. Thanks. He cracked a nut open and ate it, still holding his throat all the while. After a moment, put a finger on my chin and closed my, until then, gaping mouth for me. You're welcome. No, wait. What was that? What happened to you? It was nothing. If you don't tell me, I'm asking Dad. You won't. I will, if I think you're ill. But I'm not. I mean, besides the lethargy thing or whatever, it's just... Despite my eyes meeting his ears when standing next to each other, it was easy to forget how small Cadgan was. I remembered that for the first time in a long time as I watched him curl up, hugging his knees. He lowered his gaze, but I still caught a glimmer of tears pooling in his eyes. Do you ever feel like someone is squeezing your chest real hard? Or, I don't know, like you have a knot in your throat, and then it's so tight that you can't breathe anymore? He choked, unable to keep up the act. Were his tears out of desperation because he couldn't breathe? Or did they hold a deeper meaning? I didn't understand until weeks later when Cadgan said it in a way that I could get it. But until then, the image of the wolf on the ground, as though being choked by an invisible force, became stuck in my head. Whenever I closed my eyes or my thoughts drifted to the wolf, his anguished expression was there, waiting for me. When Dad asked me if something was wrong, unable to withstand his gaze on the top of everything else, I told him what had happened. First, you shouldn't have kept this secret. You should have let me know immediately. I'm sorry. I didn't raise you to hide things from me. But I digress. We've examined Cadgan dozens of times, yet the Prismilium hasn't revealed an imbalance that could explain what you described. But the Prismilium has its limits. Namely, it can't show us abnormalities in the fifth layer, reason. Then, that's where the imbalance is? Isn't that bad? Don't be scared. Although we lack a good understanding of reason, it is but another layer. Illnesses related to it aren't so uncommon, and many aren't life-threatening. And as for if this is related to the cyclical lethargy, I doubt it. We can't be sure, but that doesn't mean that we should make baseless assumptions. Okay, but can we help him then? Dad hummed as he rubbed his chin. I know this colleague that studied reason, and he told me about a few cases similar to what you described. Hector, have you noticed him acting strange in other ways? For instance, has he been sad, angry, or scared? He always seemed angry to me, but that day he was sad more than anything. I told him if he wanted to look for nuts because I thought that'd cheer him up. He snapped his finger. Yes, he's always angry. Do you know why? I couldn't look him in the face as I said the next few words. The moments that I shared with Cadgan, what I learned about him, those were only ours. It felt unfair to share it, even with Dad. But if it led to me understanding the wolf better, maybe even helping him, perhaps it was a worthy sacrifice. He doesn't want to be here, and he hates the Duke. Once I thought that he hated doctors, but no, he distrusts us because the Duke hired us. It's believed that the mind isn't that different from the less abstract parts of our bodies, similarly to how you can injure your leg by overexerting it. Going through certain situations can injure the mind. Cadgan has been captive and kept away from his community for a long time, at the mercy of a man he hates, all because he fell victim to an unknown disease. It's not surprising that it's affecting him, no? Can we help him? The earlier we finish our job, the earlier the Duke will let him go. In the meantime, your friendship might help him get through these difficult times. Keep being kind to him. That said, that's no excuse to keep secrets. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Dad. That was my first successful lie. What Dad said bugged me. I knew little about reason then. It concerned researchers rather than practicing doctors, so he didn't teach me about it. But knowing the learned friends he had, I figured his words made sense. If they made sense, then what was bothering me? I had forgotten about it until now, but I remembered it, that nagging sensation in the back of my head, and now I have an idea. Suppose Cadgan was reacting to the abnormal situation that he'd been put through. Who's to say that reaction started with him choking with nothing obstructed his throat? Wouldn't it make more sense if that was the end, rather? What happened when every other defense had been overwhelmed? But if so, where did Cadgan end and this response start? It made me nervous, but Hector, you already have an answer to that question. You've seen what he's like in town, but then why did he let me follow him into the valley? Maybe there's more left of the old Cadgan than I realized. Well, you won't get anywhere worrying all about yourself. Why not ask him about it? You know, it's not a good idea, but you might need this, no matter the result. I don't know, I'm too nervous. Would picking a day to talk to him help? How about the day of the leaf burning festival? Perhaps that will do, yes, perhaps. Act 1, Chapter 10, A Talk with the Duke. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. So we got a little bit more information about Cadgan's particular illness and maybe a possible allergy. I would be concerned if he's not allergic to nuts. Because you can have like a very mild allergy that just gets worse. But I don't know if that would explain the whole, like, you know, passing out at a specific time of the day. Maybe it's part of what's the local folklore about the demon. I wouldn't put it past him, given what he does in the next video. Cadgan and Hector seem to be getting closer, which, you know, is nice. You know, your two boys one of them is like really sheltered, who's like itching for adventure, and he was like tied at the hip to his dad, and then the other one is, Cadgan, who is basically stuck at the Duke's estate, manor, house, until he is cured. It's like, yeah, they're both in bad situations, which, it's obvious why they would, glob onto each other. Also, Hector is a little bit too horny for his own good. Like, dude, keep it in your pants, my god. I mean, I know it's a furry visual novel and, like, like, what's to be expected, duh. But still, like, dude. If it wasn't already obvious, I'm pretty sure your friend suspects something. Now, about what's going on in the village. Manol seems to be running the village ragged. He, in his quest to figure out what is going on in the Eye Valley, and, trying to, I guess, just either capture this demon, find out whether or not it's real or what. I mean, you would think that a man of science would not be so inclined to believe that there's a demon, but, like, I mean, and this recent expedition has injured a lot of people. Then there's the whole thing about the haze leaf, where the haze leaf in the Eye Valley is apparently like a very powerful and dangerous hallucinogenic, and the haze leaf that is in, well, outside of the Eye Valley is just like a normal little, just a normal little special flower, normal little special weed. But not only that, but then there's the strange properties of the Eye Valley itself. Like, as shown with the haze leaf, things tend to grow beyond what they're supposed to. Trees get way bigger. I'm assuming that the same holds for, like, beasts. I'm assuming there's beasts here. I mean, they had, like, beasts of burdens when they were riding the carriage. But things just get bigger and more dangerous, so I'm assuming that it may be more of a... Well, it might be that something is tainting the valley if things get dangerous, and it's not more like, oh, it's just giant trees and giant plants. It's dangerous things. Like, there's rumblings that shouldn't be rumbled. There's things happening that shouldn't be happening, and I'm assuming that it's coming from the Eye Valley. So there's either something there, or it's just like, oh, it's the land that it's tainted, cursed, or special. I'm assuming that Manol wants to know what makes that land tick. It's not so much like, oh, there's a demon there, I want the demon captured, killed, or whatever. It's more like, I want what he is guarding. So yeah. Anyways. So, write down in the comments what you think so far about the story, about the characters, about the setting. If you have any comments, critiques, if you like the characters, do you like Hector? Would you, be just as weird as he is? You can tell that I'm not a very big fan of Hector. At the very least, when it comes to, being that little weirdo. I'm not gonna fault him. Yes, I have been... Well, actually, no. I don't think I've ever reminisced about any childhood friends and been like, oh, I wonder how he's doing. I wonder if I could, hook up with him. But that's just me. I'm not the type of person that would do that. Either way. But yeah. So, write down in the comments what you think, and thank you all for watching/listening. If you would like to play Devil's Gambit yourself, you can do so by going down into the link in the description. Well, links. The Twitter link, or the Blue Sky link, which I'm assuming should have direct links to the itch.io page where you can download the game and play it yourself, or you can just go to itch.io and, download it there and, play it. And I will also be posting a link down for their Patreon where you can get early access, presumably, to a build of Devil's Gambit and whatever else they might offer. I don't know, maybe works in progress or whatever. That's usually what people offer. And also my coffee down in the description in case you want to, donate to me if you feel so inclined. Help me get a new chair. Seriously, this one is, I noticed now that it's like lopsided, so when I sit down, I kind of sit down lopsided, which would explain why my lower back hurts a lot. Especially when I'm sitting for hours on this thing. But yeah, so also, channel memberships. If you're on desktop, you should see the little button on the bottom. Click it, you'll see a video that explains what will be offered, so I'm not going to do that here. But you will be seeing the people who have already, subscribed to the channel and who have been already supporting me. They will have already seen these videos. This is the second one. Before you. So yeah, good for them. They're good. They're my favorite people. But yeah, so thank you. But yeah. I am resisting the urge to describe what you get. Just click the little join button. It should be right there. If you don't see it, that's probably because you're on mobile, and I don't know if it shows up on mobile. It's usually there on desktop. I know that. I think it's on mobile. I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure it's not. What else? I guess that's it, really. I really should be putting these at the beginning of the outro, not at the end of the outro. But yeah. Thank you all to the people who have supported me. It really means a lot. It will help the channel grow, obviously. Yeah. I guess that's it for now, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.